start us off?
I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order then, and we don't have to read that whole thing we've been reading for 15 months. So glad to be back in person. So I guess we'll do, a roll call of folks in the room, and then Sylvia, if you can help with the roll call of people on Zoom. So Colleen Mayu with the Town of Legendary.
Nancy Michaels, the Chambers, Manchester, and Gary Legendary.
Linda Kuhart, Francistown.
Joyce Yours, Condary.
Andrew Haddock, Chester.
Bush Thomas, Hooksett.
Carl Epic, the Southern Hampshire Plan.
Cam Perlman with the Southern Hampshire Planning Commission.
And Sylvia Von Allock at the commission here. So we'll go around the room. We have, as far as members on the TAC, we have Dick Snow and Candia.
Aye.
We have Kristen Clark from Manchester.
Here.
Lori McCarowitz from CART.
Good morning.
William Rose from DOT.
Good morning.
Tim White, DES.
Yes, present.
Tim, did you say hello? I couldn't hear that.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Your microphone's a bit funky. And non-voting members, we have Lee Levine from Federal Highways.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Dean Williams from Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Good morning.
Morning. And let's see, we have several other folks on. Aaron Hume.
Present.
Good morning. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And I missed Jillian Harris from Bedford.
Here.
Good morning. And let's see, who else did I miss? For staff, we have Monique, James, Zach, and Nate, and Adam all online. So thanks for being there.
Right.
All right.
So I guess we'll hold off on action of the minutes until we have a quorum in the room. So we'll hold off on that, the minutes. New business, we won't be able to make a recommendation, but Carl, do you want to go ahead with the presentation on the TIP amendment?
Yeah, sure. Sylvia.
Yeah.
This would get easier. All right. Hi, everyone. Carl Epic with the commission. Last time we met, you did get this presentation on TIP amendment number 1. However, there's been a couple of, or a small tweak and an addition. And as the agenda says, the normal procedure here is to make a recommendation to the MPO Policy Committee to proceed with TIP amendment number 1. So I'll just go through it really quick, and please let me know if you have any questions, either as we go through it or at the end. Can everybody see a screen that says SNHPC FY 2021-2024 TIP amendment number 1? You guys seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to hear one person say it. All right. Just as a reminder, the way this works is that us, in conjunction with DOT, as projects are changed, we need to amend the Transportation Improvement Program. And this is usually, amendments are to accommodate a series of project additions, removals, funding or cost adjustments, and scope changes. And we released TIP amendment number 1 back on June 7th and are held a 10-day, we are in the midst of a 10-day public comment period, and we'll be convening a public hearing on June 22nd at the MPO meeting. So the projects that we're talking about here is Bedford Merrimack. This is to improve the Bedford Mainline Toll Plaza on the Turnpike, to institute all electronic tolling. And the proposed amendment is to add 2021, 2022 PE phase funding and to increase construction phase funding and delaying construction until FY 2023-2024. You may recall that's related to the pandemic impacts on the finances. The cost and timeline of the project have been updated to reflect all electronic tolling scope of work. Second project is a Manchester project, also related to the Turnpike, reconstruction of exit 7 on the F.E. Everett Turnpike. Proposed amendment is to remove it from the tip. Reason for this is, again, I-293, exit 6 and 7 reconstruction projects are being delayed due to fiscal constraints related to the COVID-19 pandemic. My understanding is they just fall out of this tip and they'll be in the next timeframe tip, which is why it's not being removed forever. It's just being removed from this tip and moved to the next one. This is the new additional project since we last presented this to you, which is to construct a multi-use path along the abandoned rail corridor from Gold Street to Perimeter Road, and adding a PE phase work for FY 2021. And the reason for this is they're adding this phase. The project is now, because they're adding this phase, it's now entering the Amendment 1 project list and the financial constraint report. This next one is Nashua Manchester, the New Hampshire Capital Corridor. This is a scope change only. The proposed amendment is literally to define the scope of the project as design, environmental review, and financial plan for commuter rail extension from Mass to New Hampshire. And the reason for this amendment is because the scope is being defined in the project now needs to mirror what is adopted in the 2021-2030 10-year transportation improvement plan. We have a series of program adjustments here. This is FTA 5339, which is for capital bus and bus facilities. This is a statewide program. The proposed amendment is to increase the overall FY 2021-2023 funding and decrease the 2024 funding. The reason for this amendment is to reflect the increased federal apportionments to New Hampshire for FTA section 5339 program and anticipated project expenditures. Even though 2024 is decreasing, the overall program in 2021-2023 is increasing. Just want to note that again. And the next program is the LTAP, Local Technology Assistance Program, administered by the Technology Transfer Center at UNH. And this proposed amendment is to change the notation for the work phase from SPR to other, simply a change in the funding. And the reason for this is administrative change to ensure consistency with federally recognized work phases. Next program is TSMO, TSMO, Statewide Transportation Systems Management and Operations, ITS Technologies, and Traveler Info. Proposed amendment is to increase funding from the FY 2023-2024 TIP. And the reason for the proposed amendment is to reflect anticipated project expenditures from 9 statewide initiatives, including, and we've been through these, this is just a subset of the 9. Things like replacing existing ITS devices, promoting remote traffic signal communications where feasible, all good stuff with to help with travel information systems. Next one's a statewide project, 25198, which is road weather information systems. Proposed amendment, again, is only a scope change to define the scope of the project as to install road and weather information systems around the state. And the reason for this amendment is to better represent the anticipated scope of work for the project. Next statewide project is an ortho imagery acquisition, statewide USGS 2021. Proposed amendment, again, scope change only, to define the scope of the project as, quote, statewide USGS 2021 ortho imagery acquisition and services. And the reason for this amendment is to better represent the anticipated scope of work for the project. And that's the projects. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Typos in a.
Go ahead, Dick.
You might want to exit the presentation so you can see the people.
I'm not sure if he wants to see something in there. You can go ahead, Dick.
Richard Snow, you're muted right now.
Wait a minute. I unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Okay. On the tip amendment number 1, on page 14 of the PDF that came out for the meeting today, It says at the top, FFY 2021 S-tip Amendment 1 financial constraint. On the first block there, the header that for state resources, I think it is. Yes, it says where state resources. That's misspelled. It should say available or something like that. Wait a minute. It's misspelled.
On page 14, Dick?
On page 14, yes, the top of
Okay.
it, the first block where it has state resources B, it's it should say available. What it says is AVALAB, okay?
Okay, yeah, I don't
And
have
that
it in front of
also
me, but I
shows
can
up.
find that.
Okay. It also shows up on page 17 on the FFY 2024 financial constraint. That also has the wrong header on it.
It has a misspelling?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The
So
question
those
that I have,
those fiscal constraint reports we get from New Hampshire DOT. So I guess we would ask William to make a note of those typos and if the department corrects those, send us an updated copy.
So noted.
okay, thanks, Bill. On page, what it says on it, it's got a 10 underneath it. On the statewide 2021 USGS Ortho Imagery, the 43368. Under the funding, and I'm looking at the block that has the 10 right underneath it, which I think is the page in the PDF, but it may be on your slide. I don't know. Anyway, the statewide USGS Ortho Imagery. Under funding, it says something about non-par other. What is non-par other as a funding source?
It's non-participation funds, meaning it's either federal or state. It's coming from another source. And I don't know what the source is in this case, but.
Okay, just a question.
Linda, I think you have a question?
Yeah, Linda?
I was just wondering what the SPR, when we changed from one designation, I think it was SPR.
Yeah, SPR is state planning resources. Is that right, Nate?
That's good. I was just looking for.
SPR stands for State Planning and Research, but I think that basically they're just change the. My understanding is that it's kind of an administrative change just to call that phase other rather than SPR for that particular project.
I would agree with that change.
It's the opposite, Nate.
Are we going from other to SPR?
Yeah, there are actual SPR dollars participating in that project.
Well, and that's not what the slide says.
But the phase is changing to other.
As long as we're going to vote for the right thing and not for the wrong thing, back up.
It's confusing at this point. What?
Can you find that slide?
Yeah, which,
It was the one related to ortho imagery?
Yeah.
This is it.
Oh, no, it's
No,
not.
no,
It's,
it was, page 14, I think,
it's,
Carl.
what's the change?
It's the LTAP project, Carl. It's
Okay.
the change is that the 4 years are coded as SPR phase and they're proposed to change to other, the designation for the phase being other rather than SPR.
Where is it? There we go.
Yeah, that one.
So you got it backwards?
No, that is correct. I thought we were
Okay.
talking about the ortho photos.
We were all confused here.
Now we're good. So I have a procedural question. If we don't have a quorum, but we should make a recommendation, can we adjust the agenda of the MPO to have a TAC quorum meet first, vote to recommend to the MPO?
that, or do you want, rather than a formal recommendation of by consensus, so we're not making a motion and taking an action, but in general, there's a consensus of the TAC.
Nate, what do you think of that? I think that sounds agreeable, that there's just a consensus of the TAC.
Yeah, you can't take any formal action because there's no quorum in the room, but you could have a consensus of those members present in the meeting.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
if I could for a second, this is Tim White, DES. I know that what's been done in prior occasions when you've had a not enough members to make a quorum in the room is that, and I know that this has been done in the past, the vote's been taken and then the vote's been taken and officially recorded. And then there was an effort made after the meeting to try and obtain one additional vote by another means, such as on the phone. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that that's what's been done in the past. So you might want to consider that with regards to the TIP amendment and any other business that you want to take up during this meeting, such as the meeting minutes. Like I say, just a suggestion, it's been done in the past, so.
Yeah, my gut tells me 91A says the members have to be present. That's my understanding.
That's why I was wondering, are enough TAC members usually at the MPO meeting?
No.
Okay.
So I think what's better is to do the consensus. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I would agree. I think if you have the consensus of those members present today, in lieu of a formal motion, because action can't be taken, I think that essentially, would still be a reasonable recommendation to give to the MPO, just to say that we do have significant TAC attendance today. We're just missing one person in the room, so. The consensus of those present is still a worthwhile thing to pass along to the MPO next Tuesday.
So my suggestion is we don't take a formal vote, but if those that are virtual can just give us a thumbs up. So we have a visual. So I saw Kristen Clark, we have Jillian, we have Dick Snow, we have Tim. I don't see Lori there, but so that's good. Lori, you have thumbs up?
So did Jillian Harris.
Yeah, I saw Jillian. I saw Dick. Thanks, Dick. I got your thumb. I saw Tim. Thank you. All right. So, and then everyone else in the room, thumbs up? Thumbs up to everyone in the room. So there's your consensus.
So next we have update on regional scenic byways.
Let me share my screen here.
Yep. Are you able to do so, Adam?
I am not at the moment.
1 second.
Yeah, the next session's presentations are just informational.
Okay, Adam.
So we don't have to worry about.
Thank you.
Come over to that, so that you don't have to move the camera so much.
Well, they won't see me.
Right, that's true. All right.
All right. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Looks good.
All right. So I gave a similar presentation on scenic byways back in April of last year, but quite a bit has changed since then. So I thought it worthwhile to give an update today. And Cam will be helping me with the presentation as well. Does anyone know where this photo is taken?
No, I don't know.
It's along Route 43 in the southern part of Deerfield on the Upper Lamprey Byway. So as you may remember, we have 4 scenic byways in our region, and here's the map showing them. The General John Stark is in the western part of our region, going through Goffstown, New Boston, Ware, and Dunbarton. Over to the east, we have the Upper Lamprey through Candia, Deerfield, and Northwood. South of that, we have the Robert Frost Old Stagecoach Scenic Byway, and that goes through Auburn, Chester, Derry, Hampstead, and Atkinson. And then in the town of Londonderry, we have the Appleway, which is a little bit different than the others in that it's managed by the town's Heritage Commission. So SNHPC helped put together their corridor management plan back in 2014-15, but we're not as involved in the Appleway as much as the others. So the General John Stark was designated in 2009. It's a 34-mile loop route. Some of the things that have been accomplished in the 12 years are a brochure was designed in 2014 that you can see off to the right there. And that's been distributed to various locations along the route, as well as the Manchester Airport and the Millyard Museum. The signage you see here was designed by a high school student in 2015, and the signs were installed that same year. There are currently 18 signs along the route that you may have seen as you go through those towns. And our commissioner, Dave Pierce, he's the chair of the Byway Council. He was a big force behind that effort. So what's new with the Stark Byway since 2020? Well, after a several-year hiatus, the council has been meeting again regularly in the last year and a little more. The main thing that the council is doing in the last year is updating the corridor management plan. As you can see here, the original plan is from 2008, so it's time to update it. Catalog of intrinsic values, or the points of interest, is one of the main things that has changed a little bit over the years. Zach in our office is helping to update the maps, which include a traffic count map, conservation lands, and then an overview map and individual maps of the 4 communities with their points of interest. The action plan is goals, objectives, where does the Byway Council want to head over the next decade or so, and then just some formatting issues that the original plan had, just trying to bring it into the present here. So we'll be working on that over the summer, and the council is scheduled to meet in September, and they will hopefully approve that plan. So the Robert Frost Old Stagecoach Byway is a 43-mile route, and it was designated in 2015. The council is one of the more active councils in the region, and a website was designed in 2019, as you can see below, and a brochure last year that 1,000 copies were ordered and distributed throughout the byway towns, as well as the airport and some of the main tourist places in the region. The brochure is going to be reprinted, or has been reprinted already, and 1,000 more copies have been ordered. So it's going well. People are taking the brochure, and there's a map inside in there as well. So what's new with this byway? Monique in our office has busily worked on a ArcGIS story map, and you can see a screenshot to the right there. And this is a resource that byway travelers will get to use. This is not a live link here, but you can click on one of these points and a photo will come up, as well as some historical or background information on a site. And as you can see, there's all 5 towns up here, and that's still in development, but Monique has a really good draft, and the council has expressed their approval of it so far. Back on May 4th, a month and a half ago, this photo below, there was a Lafayette plaque installed along the byway in Derry. This commemorates General Lafayette's 1825. He made 2 stops in Derry on his farewell tour of the United States. So that was a cool little ceremony that was pretty well attended. And then the Frost Byway CMP is coming up for an update as well. It was done in 2015, and believe it or not, quite a bit has changed in those 6 years. So that'll be coming up later this year and into next year. So the Upper Lamprey Scenic Byway is 40+ miles, also designated in 2015. This logo you see at the right was designed by a local artist in 2018, and a website was done the following year. The council approved a route change a couple years ago, but it hasn't been implemented yet. They are looking to start some fundraising to get these signs installed along the byway. So last fall, Monique and I went out in the field to map the signage locations that were chosen by the Byway Council. And you can see an example of that over here with the direction of the sign that will be installed there, the location, and then GPS coordinates. And what we did was I stood off the side of the road to where the sign would likely be installed, and Monique documented that. And we have these maps for all 3 towns with numbered signage. And as you can see, there's a lot of turns on this byway. So that's what that is down here. These are very small towns. So a couple of volunteers have stepped down recently. So we are looking to get a breath of fresh air into the council so we can continue its work going forward and get the signage installed. So here is a map of the state byways across the state. There are 19 total, including 3 nationally designated and 16 that have been designated by the state. And at this point, I will turn it over to Cam for the next few slides.
It looks like the office mic in the conference room is muted.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we realized we were just doing a little self-talk about keeping quiet in here.
Thank you, Adam. So that the map that was just shown, you can see there are, quite a few byways throughout the states. All of them have different needs and wants. They deal with different obstacles, from volunteerism to fundraising. So back in 2017, a group met with the intent to try to figure out how we can help byways throughout the state. And so ultimately that group became the New Hampshire Scenic Byway Network, with a purpose to increase awareness of byways and provide education and trainings and hold forums. So right now the composition of this group is made up of RPC representatives, New Hampshire DOT, the New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism. We have some representatives from the tourism industry in New Hampshire, from the White Mountains, the Lakes region, and Seacoast. And then we have representatives from local byway councils. And every year since 2017, we've tried to hold an annual forum. So we've had 3, 2017, 18, and 19. And we would invite guests. We've had panels in the past. And we've had quite the attendance over the years. And due to COVID, unfortunately, we couldn't have one in 2020. And so we're hoping to have one in 2022 back in person. So over the past, I guess, year or 2 years, the network, in collaboration with New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism, we've been trying to, basically get the word out about byways. Not everyone in the state knows what a scenic byway is, and we find that there's a lot of value for the towns. So we worked with the state to try to get more information on the New Hampshire's visitnewhampshire.gov website, which is a frequently visited webpage. And so they kind of categorize these scenic byways under their scenic drives section of their website. But so we worked with them to get information and pictures and maps of each byway throughout the state, with links to Facebook pages and websites. So that's been kind of fun and something we've worked on. You can go to the next slide. So recently of this year, New Hampshire DOT and Federal Highways announced a new funding opportunity under the National Scenic Byway Program. And when this was announced, there was some information provided, one being there would be 16 million nationwide under this program. The notice of the funding opportunity has not been made public yet, but we anticipate learning more sometime in this summer. But so some potential eligible projects will include state and Indian tribe scenic byway programs, updates of corridor management plans, highway safety improvements, construction of byway facilities, access to recreation, resource protection, tourist and interpretive information, and marketing programs. So along those lines, the New Hampshire Scenic Byway Network saw an opportunity, and we did submit a letter of intent for a project for this funding. And it's a statewide byway project. The intent is to be under the marketing category of eligible projects where statewide marketing materials would be made for New Hampshire's byways in various forms, and also to partner with the Division of Travel and Tourism and RPCs and local byways. So once we have more of an understanding about what we can do with this funding, we can provide an update. But as of now, the network did submit a letter of intent. So.
All right, thank you, Cam.
Yep.
So another thing that's happening, it will be 2022, is a byway leader training that's put on by the National Scenic Byway Foundation. So the NSBF is a nonprofit organization that assists byways, educates across the country, and connects various local byway groups. They've put on 2 or 3 annual trainings nationwide since 2015. During COVID, they did a couple virtual trainings. I was able to attend one a few years ago near Albany. Some of the topics, there are probably a dozen topics. I just listed a few here. Wayfinding, updating corridor management plans, which is very relevant in our region, as you've seen. Developing partnerships with local organizations, and volunteer recruitment, that sort of thing. Target audience, RPC staff, DOT, chambers of commerce, tourism folks, really anyone involved with local byways. So it's open to the public. I believe it's around $100 for a 2-day training that includes meals. And we're fortunate enough to have the NSBF coming to North Woodstock, New Hampshire in May of 2022. So that should be a really good opportunity for some of our byway leaders around the state to hear what's happening in other parts of the country and collaborate with folks from other regions. So nationally, byways are also receiving more attention lately. In February, 49 new byways were designated, which was the first set of designations in over a decade. So there were many byways who had applied for designation in the last decade or so, who have been waiting patiently, and they were finally designated. 34 of them National Scenic Byways in 21 states, and that includes a few in our neighboring states of Maine, Mass, and one in Rhode Island, which is the first one in that state, and 15 all-American roads in 14 states, which are basically the all-stars of byways. They're your Route 66 and the Pacific Coast Highway, that sort of road, that are kind of our best. If someone were to come from another country, these are the roads they'd probably want to drive first. And as a reminder, there are 3 national byways in New Hampshire, which are listed here: the Kankamangas Highway, the White Mountains Trail, and the Connecticut River Byway, which runs the entire length of the state. And that was the most recent national byway designated in New Hampshire, which was 16 years ago now. So the bottom line is there's a lot of attention coming back to byways after quite a few years where it was kind of a back burner item. So it's exciting to see this nationally, and hopefully with continued interest locally and around the state, we'll have some good projects going forward. So I think that wraps things up. If anyone has any questions, Cam and I are happy to listen to them.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any in the room. If anyone online has any questions for Cam or Adam? Great. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thank you.
So next, James, pedestrian infrastructure data collection.
Great. I will share my screen as soon as I am able to do so.
James, we're not hearing you. It doesn't look like you're muted, but your microphone seems a little quiet. Oh,
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay. Let me try sharing my screen now. Looks like I might need to be made a co-host. Aha. All right. Share my screen. All right. So is everybody seeing the screen? It should show a slide titled Documenting Pedestrian Facilities.
Looks good.
Thank you, Monique. All right. So today I am gonna, it's almost a year to the day. A year ago, I gave a somewhat of a similar presentation talking about SAID's facility, documentation of various facilities. And so SAID's is the Statewide Asset Data Exchange System, T2, which was run by UNH, and I'll get to that in a minute. But SAID's establishes a uniform transportation inventory of assets, including their maintained condition, which is useful for many state and local agencies. Probably the one you're most familiar with is the stream crossings, or RSMS, which is road surface conditions. It's a unique approach to statewide management of assets, and uses modern technology to streamline what used to be a fairly labor-intensive process. I think I just had to get a picture of myself in there, you know. The SAIDS is a partnership of New Hampshire DOT, the Department of Environmental Services, the Association of Regional Planning Commissions, Fish and Game, HSCM, which is escaping me at the moment. Cam could probably help me out on this one. The hazard mitigation plans overviewed by HSCM. And New Hampshire, the University of New Hampshire, which is the home base for T2's offices. SAIDS is managed by a fellow named Chris Dowd, and their offices are in Durham, New Hampshire. And here's Chris's contact information. I put it in as a slide in case you have specific questions about how T2 is organized and managed. So the commission, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, can help our member communities, our municipal partners, through the use of SAIDS. And so staff at the Planning Commission can use the software and provided hardware to collect data according to specific protocols that have been developed through T2. Staff can also, once the data is collected, can also utilize the database to and manage the database for communities. This data can be accessed and shared in various forms through reports and analysis that staff can present to municipal to communities through either their boards or selectmen, or directly to municipal staff. typically when a community is interested in collecting data that is available through the SAIDS protocols, they would reach out to Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, and we would work together to develop a scope around the desired data collection. Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission staff would go out and collect that data, physically go out in the field and collect it according to the protocol. That information is then formatted in GIS. And really, there's very little work that needs to happen there. When the data is collected, it essentially is formatted in GIS. And then the information that's available in GIS can then be formatted into reports to assist communities in data management. SAIDS exists across these 4 categories. I believe there are 1 or 2 others, but these are the 4 that Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission would assist any community with if they had an interest. Stream crossings, which we already have an active program to go out and collect stream crossing data. In our region, there's over 1,500 documented stream crossings, and that's everything from culverts to small bridges. RSMS, which is the Road Surface Management Protocol, and Monique would know, or Adam, but we've gone out and assisted a few communities in our region with collecting this data. Maybe Ware, if I'm remembering correctly.
We did. We've worked with Candia and Deerfield.
Okay, sorry about that. Not Ware, but Ware, if you want an RSMS data collection, we can help you out. Pedestrian facilities, which we're going to talk about a little more in depth right now, and closed drainage systems, which is relatively new and has not been utilized, to my knowledge, in this region by any of the municipalities, likely because closed drainage systems don't exist at scale that in many of our communities outside of Manchester, maybe Derry. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about pedestrian facilities. And first, I just want to define what a pedestrian facility is. So that's sidewalks, walkways, and trails, which transportation planners and federal highway refer to as multi-use paths, curb ramps, crosswalks, signal controls, which is the crosswalk button. So in this image, the person here is pushing a signal control to control this intersection. Street furnishings, such as, not shown here, but waste receptacles, mailboxes, trees, anything that exists between the sidewalk and the road. And traffic calming, so that could be a curb extension, elevated crosswalks, tabletops. This is a little bit of a digression, but what's the importance of pedestrian facilities and planning? In the past, you may have seen Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission put together documents that speak specifically to the needs and use of pedestrian and bicycle facilities. And I think the most notable one would be our Complete Streets Toolkit. And I should have included a link here, but if I can find it right after this presentation, I'll put it in the chat box. The Complete Streets Toolkit talks about the value and the utility of having a street that serves all users of the public right-of-way. Pedestrian infrastructure provides a safe means for pedestrians to travel on foot. And we know every trip starts and ends with a pedestrian moving on foot or by wheelchair or other means if they're differently abled. Pedestrian facilities, when built, improve mode split. So the reliance on the automobile is reduced. The number of people making trips by foot or bicycle increases, and these things have a variety of benefits. Increased walkability, when these facilities exist, promote transit use. And so if you can walk to a bus stop, you can take a bus to another place and walk to your destination. The need for a car is eliminated, and can increase use of transit. Pedestrian friendly communities have higher property demand. We've seen this across the nation. There's a national trend where walkability is equated to land value. And then there's a host of environmental health and equity benefits. Like I said, this is a little bit of a digression, but I just wanted to talk about why collecting pedestrian data might be useful. So how can pedestrian data be used? It can support local walkability audits. And understandably, a lot of our communities don't have large village centers, but at some level, each community has a small village at the very least, some kind of village center or node that they consider the center of town. And so where sidewalks and crosswalks exist, this kind of walk-shed analysis can be done to determine what destinations and origins exist within the existing walk network. The data can be used to just document the existing conditions of existing facilities. So are my facilities in good condition? Are they in poor condition? What needs to be replaced? Where are there gaps? You might have a mile-long sidewalk with a 200-foot gap right in the middle and not even know it. And by documenting your pedestrian facilities, sidewalks, you would be able to identify that and possibly address it. The other thing is ease and conformity of asset management. By using SAIDs, the way sidewalks are documented town by town is consistent. And so that data then becomes more useful at a regional scale and at a state scale. And then one other important note is when we document pedestrian facilities, they become useful for interagency coordination. And so just knowing where your sidewalks are allows you to have conversations with your regional planning commission and your state about where we're going next in terms of a pedestrian network. The SAIDS protocol itself falls into 3 categories of infrastructure: sidewalks, curb ramps, and crosswalks, and they all interconnect. So here an example, this is a screenshot of what that data looks like in GIS once it's collected. When Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission staff are out in the field, they're literally looking at a tablet where this image would exist, and so you can click on the screen and form a point, or you can form a segment. And so the sidewalks and crosswalks exist as segments that connect to individual points, and the points typically are curb ramps where they exist. So we'll just briefly here, I'm going to mention what the attributes are for each of these. So when we're out in the field collecting data about sidewalks, the attributes that we're collecting are surface material, condition of the sidewalk, curbing material and shape, buffers between the sidewalk and the road, so that could be parking, furnishing zones, trees, obstructions. You might sometimes have a fire hydrant right in the middle of the sidewalk. That happens from time to time. And then slope and width. The reason that data is collected is because it lets us determine whether a given length, a given facility is ADA accessible. Curb ramp attributes are very similar. So we collect the type of ramp it is, and I won't get into all this, but there's a variety of options. There's not just a uniform style of tip down. And the material, whether it's concrete, asphalt, others, condition, whether there's a detectable warning, right? So you see this steel plate in here, that's an ADA indicator that you're getting to the end of the sidewalk and you're about to enter into the travel lane. Crosswalk alignment. So it's in this instance, right? You can't see the whole road, but you know that this sidewalk's kind of coming in at an angle to the road. And then again, slope and width and slope, which help us identify whether this is an ADA accessible facility. Crosswalk attributes are the line typology. This one's kind of, I don't think we have any example of this in our region, where you kind of have double lines with a larger gap between, but sometimes these lines are just striped perpendicular to the travelway, and sometimes they're parallel. And so we document what those are, what the paint type is. There's thermoplastic, there's reflective paint, there's a variety of paints, whether that paint's faded or new, whether there's calming features such as pedestrian islands, whether there's a crosswalk call button to control an intersection that's signalized or has flashing beacons, whether there's pedestrian signage, even the movable kind in the middle of the road, and then again, width and slope, and whether that helps us determine if this is an ADA accessible facility. And so this is my brief presentation of the pedestrian protocol information, how it's used, what it looks like online. And so we, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is at the end of June is coming into a new unified planning work program, a new fiscal year. And within that, we've included a description of piloting, of collecting SAID's pedestrian infrastructure data. And so we're looking to work with a smaller community that has an interest in using such an inventory. And so this is my long-winded solicitation for any interested community to reach out to us and connect with, send me an email, connect with me if you have, if there's a particular interest in documenting your sidewalk conditions. This would be the first time Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission will be doing this, so it's a little bit of a pilot, a trial, and the Planning Commission is seeking to do this so that we can determine how much labor goes into this. So we're looking to do a smaller scope. It could be in a larger community, just limited in scale, or it could be a small community and we're collecting the whole thing. But if any of you have interest, please do reach out. We'd like to talk to you about collecting this data on behalf of your community. And with that, that's concludes the presentation. If there's any questions, feel free. I'm happy to answer them, or if I don't know the answer, I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
I have a question. I'm just curious. So the method of mobile data collection you're using, is that a collector app or using Survey 123?
We're using an iPad in the field. It's I forget, it's a new app called Field GIS or something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. And so the app has the protocol built right in, and where there's multiple choice, we're picking a multiple choice answer. Of course, the iPad's GIS enabled, so we're able to put down a point based on our location or manipulate that point to be very precise about where we're putting it. And then where there's open fields, we're putting in numeric data often, and sometimes taking notes and comments.
Thank you.
I can just real quick, let's see if I can find it. I'll show you what this is what the GIS looks like. As you can see, there's some documentation in our region, but it's really pretty minimal. It has a lot of it has to do with New Hampshire DOT collecting information about ADA accessibility along their primary highway facilities. But some communities have gone out and done a pretty robust job of collecting data. So here's what Rochester looks like relative to that. And they've done a pretty good job of documenting as a good chunk, a majority of their pedestrian infrastructure. And so they could probably do a pretty comprehensive walkshed analysis based on this, as well as other data analysis. But I'm just going to click on one facility to show you the kind of data that exists in this, right? So we know when it was collected, it has a unique identifier, who collected it, the location name, and then it gets into these specific attributes of the sidewalk. And and numerical data about the width and length and other accessibility information. So. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks. So James, you're up next with overview of regional trail imagery data.
Again, okay, I'll keep this pretty brief. There's not a lot of information here. This is more just for your information about something we're working on as a pilot for existing recreational trail facilities in the region. So again, as part of the next Unified Planning Work Program, we've written in a description for a special project to collect trail imagery data and to distribute that imagery data through some platform that is yet to be determined. So the trail imagery data collection is has two main components of it technologically that allow us to be able to do this efficiently. The first is the use of something called a 360-degree photo camera, and the other is geolocated photos, which we're all familiar with. Your cell phone has a GPS device in it. When you take a photo, that photo knows the location. So we'll talk a little more in detail about that. First, I will talk a little bit about the 360-degree camera. So the camera looks like this. It's a two-sided camera, and there's a lens on both sides of the camera that look identical. And it's a fisheye lens, so it takes a very wide photo of the area in front of the lens. And what happens is that photo is stitched together. And so I'm giving away my next slide. So that photo, this is, I apologize, this is a grainy photo, but I want to give this example. So that photo, when the camera is able to stitch those two images together into one 360-degree image, and when you look at it two-dimensionally, it's very disorienting, right? Like it's hard to tell where the horizon line is in this image because you can see that way, you can see that way. You can see the building in front of you. There's an office building over here. You're seeing the entire scene in two dimensions, and it's very confusing to look at. But when this same image is stitched inside the shape of a sphere, it looks like this. It's all rectified. It looks like the way we would see something in space. And so you're able to move around the image and look at it in various directions as if you were looking at it through your own eye. And so this becomes useful when you start to collect it in series. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to show you the difference between looking at that two-dimensional image as a rectangle versus looking at it in a sphere. And you know, another way to think of that is a Mercator map of the world, right? So everything's distorted at the top. It looks enormous. Greenland is, you know, clearly Russia has an enormous amount of land area at the top. Antarctica is this long, huge thing, right? But when you look at that in a sphere, it starts to correct itself. So the big difference between the 360-degree photo and looking at a globe of the Earth is that you look at the globe of the Earth from the outside. The 360-degree photo, you look at it from the center of the sphere, looking out to the image. So that was the first bit of technology that goes on this. The second bit is geolocation of photos. And as I mentioned, your cell phone has a GPS device in it. And when you take a photo, if you open that photo's property boxes in your computer, you would see this information: GPS, latitude, and longitude, which is telling you the exact coordinates on the globe where that photo was taken. This is an important piece of information, as you'll see in a minute here. So what happens is if you were to take a series of photos of these 360-degree spheres along a line, you would get something that starts to document the Earth in a way that replicates how human sees the world. Okay, so creates a documented path. Each image gets a point in a map, and you can put this into a GIS or any other mapping device and start to see where you're taking your photos. You can then take the photo and embed it in each one of these dots where the photo is known to be taken. And what that starts to look like is this. You get an interactive map, you get a path of the map laid out, right? And along that path, each of these dots is an image. And the image is viewable in all directions, and you can traverse through them. So you can start seeing, here's the next image, here's the next image. You're able to move through them, and you're able to look around inside them. So it starts creating a virtual reality experience where you can look around, you can move through space, and you start to get a sense of the environment that somebody has moved through. That's me holding the camera and my wife Liz, and we're just going for a walk while I'm holding this camera. So this in a nutshell is how the technology works. And then that technology can be uploaded into any variety, into a number of platforms that support it. So it could be Microsoft Bing's StreetSide, Facebook's Mapillary, which I just demonstrated on the screen here. Probably the one everybody is most familiar with, Google Maps Street View. So you put in your directions into Google Maps, and when you get to a destination, you're able to see an image of your destination. And then OpenStreetMaps, which is an open source platform, which also has something called Street View. So this is how the technology works. And relative to Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, we put together a draft scope of work to collect this information for our trails. And that scope of work falls into 3 task categories: outreach and engagement, data collection and distribution, and then project findings and reporting. And so there's just two or three slides here. I'll just go through this real quick. The outreach engagement really revolves around letting people know about letting local trail and bicycle organizations as well as local municipalities know about the project by providing them a written summary of how the project works and why we would collect this data. It would involve creating a data collection protocol so that we could sign volunteers up to go out and collect the data and borrow the equipment to do it. It would create an online volunteer training video. So we would record through a software we're using right now, which is PowerPoint. We would record videos and upload them into YouTube, and explaining to volunteers how they could collect this data with the equipment. And then we would have communication with, as noted in the header for this, on how they can reach out to us to request data collection. And we would do this on an ongoing basis. We would maintain a volunteer sign-up sheet, an equipment lending calculator calendar, and maintain the videos for each volunteer to be able to view. We would also put together a term of use thing. So when somebody borrowing the equipment, gathering the data, they would agree to the terms of use for collecting that data. Task 2 would be putting together a protocol. So we talked about, providing a protocol to volunteers, but we would need to create that protocol for volunteers to go out and collect this data. Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission staff would go out to one of the rail trails, go through the paces of collecting the data, and document how to do that in a PDF similar to how SAIDS has a protocol for collecting data in their software. And then as volunteers are collecting this data on our recreational trails, and sending it back to us, we would go through the process of reviewing it, editing the data, and uploading it into some form of a map service to be determined. And then finally, once this process has gone through, we would close out the project and develop a findings report, documenting lessons learned, the activities that were undertaken, the findings of the data, and recommendations for how to utilize this data moving forward. And so that, in a nutshell, is the imagery documentation of recreational trails presentation. I don't know if people have questions about what they saw. Feel free to ask. All right, thank you.
It doesn't look like any questions in the room. Anyone else? Thanks, James, for those presentations. Other business. I don't know if we have any other business or any announcements, anything anyone needs to share.
Could I just introduce one of our attendees?
Sure.
Aaron Hume is attending this meeting there. He's in the upper left. And Aaron is an alternate on our planning board. He's on the Chester Conservation Commission, and he knows quite a bit about GIS, and he's been mapping trails in Chester. So I'm hoping that he can help James with the data collection for Chester. And Aaron also has an environmental background, so I believe it's wetlands resources. So.
What's that, Aaron?
I was saying, I've let James know previously I'm willing to work on this project in whatever way I possibly can.
Awesome, thank you.
First, I just need to get some 360 cameras.
We have a camera. I went out and purchased a camera to run that you saw that test at that cemetery.
Right.
We have the camera, so if you want to borrow the camera and try it out, we're gonna set it up so you can do that. No purchase necessary.
I'm more than willing to be your guinea pig. I'm going to be out there anyway. Might as well be testing these cameras.
Yeah. Aaron just helped us get our parcel data, correct parcel data up on the Granite in the past week, which with T-squared. So that's.
I've sent it to the right person. I don't know how long it's going to take to get put up.
Awesome.
Great. All right, does anyone have anything else? If not, I'll entertain well, do we need a motion to adjourn if we didn't officially convene?
We can have a consensus to adjourn.
Thumbs up consensus.
Thumbs up all the way. Thanks everyone again for your time. We appreciate it. Both those in the room here and those zooming in, and great presentations. Thanks everyone. Till next time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It wasn't chilly, but it's really nice now.
In here?
Outside.
Yeah, it's nice in here too. I like
Yeah,
that. I hate it when the
It was a little bit steamy this morning.
Yeah.
jacket indoors.
It's gotta get like in the 80s.